Alright guys, I'm excited. We're back for more music theory, and today we're tackling rhythms. I'm not sure if rhythms are part of music theory, but trust me, it's important. If you can't find the rhythm, no amount of music theory is going to help you write better songs. But here's the thing, rhythm is even easier to understand and pick up than learning scales or memorizing chord theory. Why? Well, because it's already in you. If you've ever tapped your foot to a beat or nodded your head to a song, you've already connected with rhythm. Rhythm is really what brings your knowledge of scales, modes, and chords into an engaging song. Check this out. Notes played with no rhythm. Same notes, but now in a cohesive rhythm. Notes played in the right place and at the right time makes all the difference. So if we look at music as a timeline, we can see that music is divided into little chunks called measures or bars. Now each measure has a set number of beats, like 4 or 6. Now these beats can be further divided into different note lengths, some shorter, some longer. So we're actually going to hear an example of that. I'm going to play a chord, and we're going to actually play a whole note. So a whole note is actually held out for an entire 4 beats. Until that 4 beats is over, then it stops playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. So that was a chord held out for a whole note at about a moderate tempo. Now I'm going to play the same chord, but I'm going to play a half note so you can hear what that sounds like. 1, 2. Alright, now I'm going to play the same chord, now I'm going to play a quarter note. 1. So how do we find eighth notes if we're just playing 4? 1, 2, 3, 4 at a moderate tempo. So what a lot of musicians will do is actually add an and in between those numbers. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're going to play that same chord and we're going to stop before the first and. So it's going to sound like this at a moderate tempo. 1. So you can see it's pretty quick. And as we go down the line, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, we're getting shorter and shorter with time that we're holding out that. And as I'm sure you've guessed by now, 16th notes are going to be really quick. So how do we find 16th notes? We already have an and, so what can we put between the 1 and the and every single time so that we can find our 16th notes? Well, it's actually very common to add an E and an right, before the 1 and the and what that does is actually multiplies it by 2 all the way through the measure, so now we can find our 16th notes. And that's, as you guessed, is going to be very quick. So we're going to stop before we hit our first E. So it's going to be what, right? It's going to be very quick. So 16th note, moderate tempo. And that's it. So instead of hearing 16th notes in music like that, which you might hear here and there, but you're probably going to hear mostly this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So it's very common to hear that type of strum in music. If you've ever heard that before, you actually heard 16th notes. And this can be applied, obviously, to individual notes. Now there are also 32nd notes, but I'm sure you've guessed by now, you're probably not going to hear too many of those. So you can use this knowledge to create different rhythms and different patterns. Maybe something like this. So now we're going to talk tempo. Now tempo is basically how fast or how slow your entire song is moving together. Think of tempo as a gas pedal, and this is measured as beats per minute. For example, 60 beats per minute. What does that mean? Well, it means that 60 beats are going to happen in 1 minute's time. And because there are 60 seconds in a minute, well, there you go. 1 second is how long each beat takes. 1, 2, 3. So if you can't remember what 60 beats per minute feels like, just look at a clock, look at the second hand, and there you go. There's 60 beats per minute. As you can see, it's kind of chill. Kind of like you're taking a nice stroll. It's like you're walking your dog or walking along the beach and just enjoying the moment. Now, a medium tempo goes a little faster, from maybe 80 to 120. So we're going to hear what a moderate tempo sounds like. So we're going to go to 90 beats per minute. That's a pretty moderate tempo, not too fast, not too slow. So a classic pop song might use this tempo. So think Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way. So when you start working in beats per minute, about 120, maybe a little higher than that, think about someone who's walking with a purpose. Now once you start hitting 150 and above, now we're cooking. The cool thing about tempo is how it can completely change the mood of your music. Take a 60 beat per minute, just a simple bass over some drums, play that at a nice slow pace, but crank up that tempo and see how it changes the vibe. So now we're going to get deeper. Now we're going to talk time signatures. Simply put, this tells you how many beats are in each measure and what those notes are going to be called. Kind of looks like something out of 3rd grade math. For example, in a 4/4 time, top number 4 means that there are 4 beats per measure. And the bottom number 4 means that they are to be considered quarter notes. So each measure in a 4/4 time signature contains 4 quarter notes. So let's go down to 80 beats per minute and listen to what 4/4 sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. New measure. 1, 2, 3. So what's another time signature we can consider? Well, let's talk about 3/4. So again, the top number refers to 3 beats in one measure, and each of those beats is considered a quarter note. So now let's hear what 3/4 sounds like at a moderate tempo at 80 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, new measure. 1, 2, 3, new measure. As a reference for 3/4 time, think of the song Piano Man by Billy Joel. All right, so here comes another one, 6/8. So as you probably guessed, there are 6 beats per measure, but what does it mean when it's over 8? Well, that means that each of these notes is actually considered an 8th note. At 80 beats per minute, this is what it sounds like. Now, as you probably notice, it sounds faster. Now, why is that? Well, it's because instead of putting 3 notes or 4 notes into a measure, now we're cramming 6 notes into that measure. So in a measure's time, we're hearing more beats per minute, which means they're going to sound faster. And because they're considered 8th notes, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. So when we're playing a 6/8 time, we're considering each beat to be an 8th note, and there are 6 of them per measure. If you've ever heard the song We Are the Champions by Queen, you've heard 6/8 time. So now that we're talking about tempo and rhythms, it's a good time to talk about how to play to these rhythms and play them tightly and on time. Otherwise, none of this makes any difference if we can't play to them. And the metronome is a great tool for nailing rhythm and timing. So why is playing to a metronome so important? Well, because if your timing is off, your music is going to sound floppy and loose like a wet noodle. And really nobody wants that, especially when it comes to recording. When you're layering instruments or you're working with other musicians, a loose performance that's not supposed to be loose is going to turn a good idea into a hot mess. Now, I know what you're going to say. A lot of musicians play loose on purpose, but I guarantee you they learned how to play tight and on time at first so that they can bend the rules and play with that feeling later on. And really, that's how most music works. You learn the rules and you learn them well, so you know when and how to bend the rules so it still sounds good. So how do we use the metronome to help us play tight? As with anything we're trying to learn or get better at, we start slow and simple and then we build on that. So we're going to start at a moderate 80 beats per minute, so it's not too slow. So each of those clicks we're going to assign a number. We're in 4/4 time, and when we hear that ding, that's going to be our 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to play a whole note on that ding. And the idea is to play right on that beat. All right, now we're going to go half notes. Remember, that's held out for 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, now quarter notes. Now, if your playing is overpowering the metronome, turn it up as loud as you can or put in earphones. All right, 8th notes. 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... 30-second notes. Seriously though, practice your whole notes, practice your half notes, quarters, eighths, and 16ths. Now what you can do to really see if you're playing on time is to practice to a metronome, but listen back, record yourself, and you can see right away how tight or loose you are. I can tell you after 25 years of practice, there are times that I think I played perfectly on the beat. And when I listen back, I see how off I really am. But keep at it, because I'm telling you, your audience, your band members, and your music will thank you. Now in the next music theory video, we're going to talk about something that's a little more nuanced. And by nuanced, I mean it's like reading a quantum physics book while skydiving. At night. And blindfolded. In a hurricane. So if you're feeling ambitious, I'll see you there.